On April 30th, 1948, a momentous event in the history of the Middle East took place. Palestinian Jews, weary after centuries of persecution, declared their independence from British rule. What followed 2 weeks later would forever alter the course of history: the official establishment of the modern State of Israel. On May 14, 1948, Jewish Agency Chairman David Ben-Gurion stood before a crowd in Tel Aviv and proclaimed the birth of the first Jewish state in over 2 millennia, the State of Israel. Amidst a backdrop of unrest, fighting erupted between Jews and Arabs as the British Army withdrew and neighboring Arab nations prepared to invade. It was a day of great optimism, but also deep anxiety. Israel's declaration of independence came with a sense of both jubilation and trepidation. The birth of Israel did not occur in a vacuum. The roots of this momentous event can be traced back to the late 19th century with the rise of Zionism, a movement born out of the persecution Jews had endured for centuries. As anti-Semitism escalated in Europe, many Jews began to envision a future in which they could escape their oppression and return to their ancestral homeland. Theodor Herzl, an Austrian Jewish journalist, became the movement's most prominent advocate. In 1896, Herzl published The Jewish State, advocating for a homeland for the Jewish people. The following year, the First Zionist Congress convened in Basel, Switzerland. Herzl's vision of a Jewish state focused on Palestine, a region rich in historical significance to Jews for thousands of years. While Herzl's early attempts to gain Ottoman support for a Jewish state failed, the collapse of the Ottoman Empire during World War I opened a new chapter. In 1917, the British government issued the Balfour Declaration, which endorsed the establishment of a Jewish national home in Palestine. With British forces now controlling the region, this declaration was included in the League of Nations mandate for Palestine in 1922. Throughout the early 20th century, waves of Jewish immigrants arrived in Palestine, particularly after the horrors of the Holocaust. However, their presence provoked tension with the Arab population. By the late 1920s, the situation in Palestine had become increasingly volatile. The British, caught between the demands of both Jews and Arabs, struggled to maintain control. Zionist groups, driven by the atrocities of the Holocaust, began to intensify their efforts to resist British rule. They waged a campaign of violent resistance, determined to speed up the creation of a Jewish state. Meanwhile, international support for Zionism grew, particularly in the United States, which began to take a more active role in the movement's cause. In 1947, after years of escalating conflict, the British referred the issue to the United Nations. The UN proposed a plan to partition Palestine into two separate states, one for Jews and one for Arabs, while placing Jerusalem under international control. The Jewish leadership, despite comprising less than half of the population, accepted the plan. They were granted over half of the land, a concession that marked a historic breakthrough. However, the Palestinian Arabs rejected the partition plan, and tensions reached a boiling point. Violence escalated, and the region teetered on the brink of war. On May 14, 1948, the British mandate officially ended. The very next day, Israel's declaration of independence was met with an immediate response. A coalition of Arab nations launched a military invasion in an attempt to prevent the creation of a Jewish state. Despite being outnumbered and less equipped, Israel's forces held their ground. With the help of logistical support from the Jewish diaspora, especially the United States, Israel's military was able to not only defend its sovereignty, but also expand its borders during the ensuing war. This conflict, known as the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, or the War of Independence, would lay the foundation for the modern State of Israel. The war's aftermath left deep scars. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinian Arabs were displaced, many fleeing or being expelled from their homes in what is now Israel. This refugee crisis would become one of the central issues of the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The scars of war were not only physical but emotional and political, as the displaced sought to return to their homes, a hope that remains unresolved to this day. In the years following 1948, Israel rose from the ashes of war to become a thriving nation, a refuge for Jews from around the world, and a symbol of resilience. By 1949, Israel had secured its territory and began building its future, quickly establishing itself as a major military and economic power in the Middle East. But Israel's establishment also set the stage for ongoing conflict. The Israeli-Palestinian struggle, born from the displacement of Palestinians and the geopolitical tensions in the region, continues to shape Israel's history. The legacy of 1948 is complex, marked by both triumph and tragedy. The dream of a Jewish homeland has become a reality, but it remains intertwined with deep-rooted challenges that define the region to this day. The founding of Israel in 1948 was a pivotal moment in world history. It was the realization of a centuries-old dream, but it was also the beginning of a continuing struggle for peace, identity, and coexistence. The legacy of 1948 is a reminder that the creation of nations is never without sacrifice, and the pursuit of peace is a journey that endures through generations.